When people talk about the characters of Batman, they don't just always mean the Dark Knight and his supporting cast, or even his rogues gallery. The term character could also easily be applied to his home base of operations, Gotham City.
Obviously, Gotham City owes a lot to New York City. DC even has it located in southern New Jersey, just a stone's throw away from Long Island. Batman co-creator Bill Finger even took the name Gotham from a New York City-based jeweler. Likewise, the people of Gotham have a shared personality with New York City, being a mixture of blue-collar immigrants and minorities, as well as old-world aristocracy.
And of course, both cities have a history of organized crime that have given birth to dominant figures throughout popular culture. Gotham City obviously has Batman, and New York City has anything directed by Martin Scorsese.
Now, the funny thing is, Gotham City has had its share of vigilantes before the Caped Crusader and friends. The Batman Year 2 storyline referred to a character called the Reaper, who was a vigilante who had no qualms over killing his adversaries and came into conflict with the Dark Knight. Later, writer Ed Brubaker and artist Darwin Cook reworked Slam Bradley into being a private investigator based out of Gotham during their ongoing Catwoman series.
Samuel Slam Bradley was actually the focal point character of the anthology book Detective Comics until Batman took it over with issue number 27. Bradley would fall into obscurity, making sporadic appearances in various anniversary issues throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s, until the 1990s when Slam Bradley Jr. suddenly popped up working for the Metropolis Police Department in the Superman comics. As for Slam Sr., well, he eventually became a recurring character in the Catwoman ongoing series of the early 2000s.
In 2022, the creative team of Tom King and Phil Hester will present a 6-issue miniseries that would showcase the relationship between Slam Bradley, the Gotham City Police Department, and the Wayne family themselves, and how all of this would have an effect on a certain Bat-themed individual.
Although the title is a bit of a misnomer, as Gotham City is well established and not in its first year of existence. Still, this miniseries is what we're covering today. This is Gotham City, Year 1.
It's March of 1961, and all of Gotham is up in arms over the disappearance of Helen Wayne, daughter of Richard and Constance Wayne. The family is keeping things secret, as Slam Bradley is visited by an African-American woman who refers to herself simply as Sue. She has a small amount of cash to retain Bradley's services in order to deliver a message to the Waynes that afternoon. Obviously suspicious, Bradley has his assistant Johnny secretly tail Sue to turn up anything as he heads off to stately Wayne Manor. Helen's vanishing couldn't have come at a worse time for the Waynes, as Richard is looking to open up a new chemical processing facility in a predominantly black part of Gotham. Not to help the area that much, it's just to get more white people to move there and drive up the property values. Bradley arrives at Wayne Manor, where he is greeted by the new security team led by one of his old partners named Loader.
Slam Bradley's backstory is that he's a former Gotham City police detective who got fired from the force for attacking the police commissioner, who's only known by the last name Starr, while the commissioner was brutalizing a suspect. As for Richard and Constance Wayne, well, these are supposed to be Bruce Wayne's grandparents. However, that does lead to a bit of a plot hole, which we'll touch on later.
After tussling with Loader and his chief enforcer, Carter, Slam hears Constance Wayne enter the room. She brings Richard down to receive the letter, which is a ransom note that requests that Slam Bradley drop off $100,000 in exchange for the safe return of baby Helen Wayne. The letter has the sigil of a bat at the bottom of it, which of course means only one thing.
Obviously, pulp western hero Bat Masterson is somehow involved in all of this.
That being said, the Waynes believe that Slam Bradley is in on this plot and have Loader and Carter proceed to work him over in order to gain a confession. When that fails and he fails to give up anything, Constance talks with him. The Wayne family is almost purely for show, as Richard is super abusive and the only calming influence was baby Helen. So Bradley must follow the instructions to a T in order to ensure a safe return. That's not Slam's only problem, as he returns to his office to find a message from the Gotham City Police Department. His assistant Johnny has been found dead from a gunshot wound at the construction site for Richard Wayne's chemical plant.
This is followed by the revelation that this entire story is being told in flashback by a deathbed-ridden Slam Bradley to none other than Batman, for reasons we'll get into later.
After a smooth and gentle interrogation from Commissioner Starr and the rest of the Gotham City Police Department, the police let Slam Bradley go as they really have nothing on them. He returns to his office to find Sue waiting for him again. She has a warning not to interfere like he did with Johnny from before, and drops off another letter with the location where the drop-off is supposed to take place. Even though there are explicit instructions for Bradley to come alone, Richard Wayne insists on accompanying the detective. Everyone, including Constance and Loader, is against the idea as they believe this to just be a setup, but Richard remains steadfast. Richard and Slam arrive at the location of the drop-off, a run-down hotel called the Finger Arms, and make their way to the roof. It's there that Sue is waiting with another letter. However, Slam says he'll only turn over the cash in exchange for baby Helen. He tries to walk away, but Richard pulls out a gun and sends him back. Sue gives Slam the envelope with the location where baby Helen is supposed to be held as she turns around and proceeds to walk off the edge of the roof.
It's okay, she just leaped onto the roof of the next building because we really needed to make a Catwoman reference here.
The envelope says that baby Helen is at Miller Cemetery near the grave of Richard's parents. Slam and Richard desperately scour the grounds to no avail, and in a panicked rage, Richard accuses Slam of being in on this plot again, and the two begin fighting until Slam drops Richard with a thunderous bolo punch. Slam proceeds to drop off the unconscious Richard at Stately Wayne Manor and heads back to his office. However, he's unable to sleep as he's continuously haunted by the visions of Helen Wayne. He manages to get just enough rest to wake up bright and early the next morning where he receives a visit from Constance Wayne, who's wearing sunglasses over a fresh shiner. Constance wants to hire Slam to locate Helen's body. It's been far too long, especially for the 1960s, and she is fully aware that the baby is in all likelihood dead. She leaves a large stack of bills on Slam's desk before leaving. He does wind up taking the case, but he doesn't touch the money as he heads out for answers.
Even though this story is set in the 1960s, it's pretty obvious that this was inspired by the real-life abduction and murder of Charles Lindbergh Jr., newborn son of the famed aviator. Lindbergh Jr. was snatched from his crib in March of 1932, and the body was found 2 months afterwards. Eventually, a German immigrant named Bruno Hauptmann, who had been working as a handyman for the Lindberghs, was arrested and executed for the murder. However, it has been argued that Hauptmann was probably a scapegoat for the police procedural failures that plagued the case ever since it was found.
Bradley decides that he really needs to try to locate Sue if he's going to find any answers. Slam deduces that the Finger Arms is a very run-down hotel and probably utilizes freelance cleaning staff, which means that Sue has probably worked the place a number of times as she seemed to be very familiar with the layout of the buildings. He proceeds to pay his way around, talking to the hotel manager and eventually the head of the freelance cleaning service, and he turns up the name of a wannabe dancer named Queenie. Searching around at the clubs eventually turns up the last name of Lydell. That being said, it could still be kind of hard to track down Queenie Lydell's exact location, so Slam pays a visit to the most connected person he knows in the south side of Gotham. She's an African-American fortune teller named Shirley, and she just happens to be Slam Bradley's mother.
Yes, for this story at least, Slam Bradley is biracial with an absentee white father. Slam had hoped the fact that he passed his white could help him get in good graces with the Gotham City Police Department. However, it turned out that they always knew his actual identity and used it against him.
Slam is able to locate the residence of Queenie Lydell's uncle, and immediately hears a baby crying shortly after knocking on the door. He forces his way in, knocks out Queenie's uncle, and proceeds to make his way upstairs where he finds a crying African-American infant.
I'm not the bad guy, kid.
However, Slam then catches a glance out the bedroom window and notices a patch of recently planted grass in the backyard. He digs it up to find the body of Helen wrapped in her baby blanket. Slam contacts the Gotham City Police Department and receives another interrogation from Commissioner Starr, mainly due to Bradley not getting involved sooner. He's held overnight until bail is posted, and he's picked up by Loader and Carter, who take him back to Stately Wayne Manor, where Richard thinks that Helen would still be alive if Slam had just played ball like he should have earlier, and immediately begins beating him as well. However, Slam fights back and wrangles a gun from Carter, and then bluffs his way by Loader with a phony sniper account in Korea in order to head back home. A few hours later, he's greeted by Constance Wayne, who is just looking for a warm feeling after everything, and initiates a sexual encounter between the two. In the afterglow, Constance points out that her baby's ashes are to be mixed into the foundation for the chemical plant, and the fact that she was found in the backyard of a black individual has turned up the racial tensions, and it seems like there's a riot about to break out in the south side of Gotham. Sam has to head out to meet with someone as he tells Constance she can stay if she wants. Sam goes out into an alley on the south side known to be frequented by rich guys looking to get something else on the side of the street, if you catch my drift. He spots Commissioner Starr and proceeds to beat him to death with a cudgel in an alley.
I mean, Cyborg tried to warn him.
That is Crime Alley, you dum-dum!
When Slam returns home, he's greeted not by Constance Wayne, but rather Queenie Lydell. She's got a story to tell, and it involves Richard Wayne. It turns out that Richard Wayne likes fooling around as Queenie encountered him after one of his escapades. The two hit things off, and he pulled the strings to get her the dancing job she always wanted. He would attend every performance, which led to plenty super happy fun time afterwards. The two wanted to run away together. The only problem is that prenuptial agreement that Constance made Richard sign results in her getting half the estate if they divorce.
You have to remember, this is pre-no-fault divorce, which means that if Richard really wanted to leave Constance, he would basically be giving up his entire Wayne fortune. That's why they're doing this kidnapping and ransom plot, because this way, Richard can screw over Queenie. Run away and live happily with her.
However, a wrinkle popped up after Queenie delivered the first note to Slam. Slam's assistant Johnny caught Richard and Queenie together and tried to blackmail them, and Richard responded by shooting Johnny and killing him. Slam was just really supposed to be an errand boy, however, Johnny's killing is what brought them further into the picture. So much so that it wound up scuttling the drop-off, as Queenie was supposed to circle back to a different room in the hotel where baby Helen was being kept, except the baby was missing from there as well. Thinking that Richard had betrayed her, Queenie attempted to flee with the money, only to hear on the radio about Helen's body being found in her innocent uncle's backyard. Knowing that a murder charge would turn up the focus on the search, as well as the fact that she suspected that Richard was still betraying her, Queenie returned to Slam in order to clear her name. Slam takes Queenie to meet with his mother Shirley to see if she's actually telling the truth. As that happens, reports begin breaking over the radio about riots starting to form in the south side of Gotham. The attempted fortune reading is halted by Queenie storming out of the room angrily. But Shirley reveals that the cards say that Queenie is telling the truth, though even she doesn't seem to know the whole truth to this situation. The two head back to Slam's apartment, where he tells her to lay low, and Queenie tells Sam the main reason he was selected, because his name was first in the phone listings. Bradley heads to Loder's home, thinking that he was the one who grabbed baby Helen from the hotel room as Richard and Slam were up on the rooftop. Loder denies everything, pointing out that he was not hired by Richard Wayne, he was hired by Constance Wayne. Remembering how Constance knew that her baby was dead when she hired him, Slam heads back to stately Wayne Manor. Slam immediately brawls his way past Carter once more, knocking him unconscious, and then takes out the Wayne's butler.
No, I don't know if said butler is supposed to be Alfred Pennyworth. I guess if you want him to be, he can.
Slam enters the parlor where the Waynes are waiting for him. Richard is pointing a gun while Constance just sits in a chair. Slam explains Richard's role in the abduction and killing, but Constance is well aware of all of this. It was the little bat symbol on the ransom note that tipped her off. It turns out that she had been exploring the estate and discovered a large subterranean cave that was full of bats. However, it was also full of something else, various records of Richard's dalliances, all of which were accompanied by that little bat symbol. Slam and Richard begin brawling over the gun, which eventually ends up in Constance's hands. Slam accuses Constance of killing Helen to get back at Richard and thus outing him to the public. She points out that would make all the sense as Richard tries to reason with her, only to get shot point blank in the head.
So here's that plot point from earlier. Remember how I said Slam Bradley was telling the story to Batman in flashback? He had deduced that Bruce Wayne and Batman were one and the same at some point in his life. This obviously shows Richard Wayne, Bruce's grandfather, being killed without his father Thomas being born, which can mean only one of two things. Either A, Constance is pregnant already, or B, and maybe most likely, I think they're trying to imply that Slam Bradley may actually be Bruce Wayne's biological grandfather. I can't say for certain, but it does seem like maybe that's the thematic idea here. You're bridging the two dominant characters of Detective Comics together.
Constance explains that Richard accidentally left his hotel key when he and Slam went to meet Queenie for the drop-off. She trailed behind them and entered the room, only to find that Helen had experienced sudden infant death syndrome. Constance took the body before Queenie came back and then followed her husband's lover to her uncle's home, where she then buried the body in the backyard. Knowing that the body was found in the home of an African-American individual will turn up the racial tension, and the resulting riots will enable quick construction of the chemical plant and some very nice urban gentrification to begin. Not to mention, Richard has been lousy at managing Wayne Enterprises and losing money like nobody's business as he just keeps throwing it around all the time. The fact that Wayne Enterprises is going to wind up getting all the reconstruction contracts will certainly help stabilize the finances. That being said, Queenie is free to keep the money that she had from the ransom and leave town without looking back as long as she keeps quiet. Slam agrees to cover things up as he knows that Queenie is also a victim in all of this as well as him. Richard Wayne's death is ruled a suicide being brought on by the death of his daughter, and a tearful, veiled Constance begs for peace in Gotham City because her husband loved the place so much and he was struggling to help try to get it rebuilt. Queenie then leaves with a new identity provided by Slam Bradley, and things slowly play out over time.
Except things don't work out quite the way Constance wanted to. It turns out that people really don't want to live next to a giant hazardous waste facility that's polluting the area around them, including the air, ground, and drinking water. So the gentrifying really doesn't take. Ultimately, Wayne Enterprises winds up selling the plant to the Ace Chemical Corporation, and nothing of note happened at that facility ever again.
A little over a decade later, and Constance pays a visit to Slam with an offer. Her son Thomas is not looking to take over Wayne Enterprises. He'd much rather become a doctor. She wants Slam to basically take Thomas under his wing and show him how Gotham operates so that the future surgeon will never wander down, say, the wrong alley at night. Feeling that he's really had enough of the Waynes, Slam turns her down. Slam finishes telling the story to Batman, who wonders why he needed to hear all of this. Slam says that he's just pointing out that this seems to run in the Wayne family, whether it was Richard's industrialization, Constance and her gentrification, Thomas trying to be a world-renowned surgeon and helping sick people, or Bruce by doing, well, Batman shit. No matter how much the Wayne family thinks they're actually helping Gotham, all they're doing is just causing more and more damage and pain.
So that concludes our look at Gotham City Year 1. How was it? Well, I really like the artwork in this story. I think it does a good job at capturing a gritty noirish feel and telling a mystery story with some decent plot twists and some very nice characterization throughout. I think this is a good, straightforward mystery. It does a good job of setting up the elements. There's some nice twists, like I said, and overall I think that aspect really works. If there's a downside, there are those plot points that just kind of go nowhere. Why does Slam Bradley have to kill the police commissioner? It just seemed unnecessarily gratuitous. It doesn't make that much sense. Like, I get they don't get along, but it just, why does he need to go out and beat the commissioner to death for no reason just to go back to his apartment? It seemed unnecessarily fillery. And again, I'm going to harp on this. I guess, again, they're trying to imply that Slam Bradley is Batman's grandfather. Again, I get the idea with the Detective Comics title, but still, it just kind of rings hollow and cheap. Like, you went a little too cutesy there. In fact, I think that's kind of the problem with this, too. I like a good Easter egg as much as anyone, but there's Easter egg overkill here. Every street in Gotham, or building in Gotham, is named after someone who created Batman, someone who worked on Batman, writers, artists, an inker. The apartment where the drop-off is supposed to be is at the Finger Towers after Bill Finger, the writer who mainly created most of the Batman mythos. So again, it's like you're being a little too cutesy for your own good. Added to that, again, the constant referencing, Richard Wayne using a bat sigil in his bat cave that's under Gotham, under stately Wayne Manor. Again, Queenie being analogous to Catwoman leaping from a rooftop. It seemed a little too spot on. Like, you could have just told a story. You don't have to constantly make references. We get that this is Gotham City. It's literally in the title. But yeah, those are probably kind of minor. Overall, this is a very fun story, especially if you like Batman stuff or the history of DC Comics. I don't know if I would necessarily call it completely canon, but it's at least entertaining. I am going to give Gotham City Year 1 a B. Like I said, I think if they just got rid of some of the if they didn't try to be so cutesy with some of the plot points, I think it would be much better. And with that, let's see what we're doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Hey guys, remember you can support my work at patreon.com/CP10 for Cat Productions, where you can even request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so that you can be notified for further videos.